Hey, my name is Sam Cohen, and welcome to the inaugural episode of The Paid Perception, except in this case, it's free. Today, we're going to be taking a look at a company's digital and advertising platform and see if we can make any improvements. The point is not to take the company down or to make them look bad, just to provide them maybe a little guidance that they could use to make their situation a little bit better. The first company that we're going to be taking a look at is called RDM Electronics Inc. So let's get into some company history. RDM Industrial Electronics Inc. is a family owned business founded in 1988 by three brothers in a basement in Nebo, North Carolina. Their focus is on new and remanufactured electronics for the petroleum, car wash, intercom, medical, and industrial equipment industries. They have branches in 6 states. So let's get started by taking a look at their website. So this is the main RDM Industrial Electronics website. We're just going to go down through the website, top to bottom to kind of see any, potential areas we could improve. The first thing that I did notice was that some of these logos up here at the top are a little outdated. Like they still have the Twitter logo instead of the X logo here, and this YouTube logo is a little bit old as well. It's just something that people and the links do work, but it is something that is a little old fashioned, and you can see like it hasn't been updated in a while. So it's something that I would probably want to just update. And it's a quick update as well. Now going down to the kind of banner image over here. The first banner image does mention 2025 events, and as of recording, it's July in 2026. So it's just showcasing it's a little outdated, and could, uh, people are probably unlikely to notice this, but it just is a small detail that could be, updated and improved. Another thing is like this is actually I did watch this video. It's a pretty good video, but it is labeled as 2023. So you could just like, for example, update the title of this video to just be RDM brand video, and that way it doesn't look like it could be potentially out of date, if you know what I mean, since it's from 3 years ago. And they do have these featured products here. They do kind of only have a uh, like a product code instead of the and like a SKU instead of the description as to what it actually is. Now there are quite a few of these, and you do have to create an account to view the price, which isn't like the most optimal kind of situation. It is okay. I imagine the majority of their customers are going to be repeats, and they're going to have an account, or like not going to necessarily have an issue creating an account, but it's just like an extra point of friction that could be removed, potentially. Now there also could be other reasons that it is organized this way. So you'd have to talk with them to see if, for example, they can't publicly showcase the price. For I've had clients that weren't able to do that for one reason or another. The descriptions on some of these products as well are not like super complete. I did check in a lot of cases. I checked the SEO titles and SEO descriptions, and those were actually fine. Um, and they had like more information as to what the product exactly was, and like for example, like if it's a board, what product did it, what machine did it go into. So it's good to have that information. It's pretty easy fix, like if they just updated some of those product pages with that information that they already have in the SEO title, and the description. I think that would be pretty solid. One of the other things that I did also kind of notice with this website, and a lot of people will not notice this. It is a very small detail, but I did kind of see that they have, and this is a piece of website code that has been turned into plain text because of improper formatting. Um, so it does show up at the only at the bottom of the site. So again, not something that people would probably see, but it is something that could be fixed up, and that would make the website look a little bit better. Now, one of the things with uh, the way this website is structured is it's actually 5 websites. So we have the this main site rdm.net here is actually RDM Petroleum. Presumably that is at least how I would view it. It's probably where they did start their company. So the main site is dedicated to petroleum. Now, one of the things, and the button here just reloads the site. They also have these 4 other websites. Now, one thing that we're going to kind of look at here is that 4 of the websites are using BigCommerce, and one of the websites is using something called 3D Cart. Uh, so there's a bit of a break between the fourth website and the medical one, which is the fifth. Um, so that's something where in general, when you have and this is more of like kind of an analytics and a kind of an organization thing of like a data a cleanliness type of thing, is when you have 5 separate websites that are they're all linked on they all have their own domains and they're all linked together like this. It does create a situation where if you don't have the analytics set up like 100% properly, you can lose a lot of your like valuable data. And by lose, I mean, say for example, you're running an ad and you send someone to the petroleum domain, and you have all your UTM parameters, and Google Analytics sees that okay, they came from an ad. Well, if they then go and click to say they go to intercom for whatever reason, on the intercom site, the only thing you're going to see is that they were a referral from the petroleum site. So it's going to strip those UTM parameters unless the Google Analytics is set up in uh, like what is effectively a very complex setup, right, for this. Um, to where you actually have the websites cross linked. So it can kind of create some problems. Not saying that they necessarily have those issues, but if it were my guess, that they probably do. One thing as well is that there is, if you look at these 4, which I've just zoomed in on this one, but these 4 websites are pretty similar, and kind of have the same overall structure, which can be kind of difficult for SEO, where it just doesn't. It might like end up creating like a sort of a problem where one page that's pretty similar to 4 others just like won't rank or will rank lower because it's duplicate content, and that can kind of be a problem. So it is something to consider. Um, Now onto like looking at the individual websites themselves. One thing that I did notice is that they do have, if you look, I mentioned on the petroleum, the main website, that at the bottom here they have this bit of code here that's showcasing. If you look at the top of this page, which I'm assuming this is placed in the header, which is kind of where this is an AdWords tag, like Google AdWords. So this is Google Ads tag, which is placed in a certain way that it's not actually in the code. I mean, it's all in the code, but it's basically being shown as plain text. And if it's shown in plain text, that means it's not placed properly and it's probably not working. So they're tracking here, based off of this tag is probably not going to be working properly. Um, and it's also like you can see it up here, which doesn't look like super great. Um, but one thing that is, they have the highlighted products on, the petroleum site, and they don't have prices. They say, you need an account, but you go to the car wash products, and they actually do have prices. So that is something that Like, I'm not sure why there's a difference between like why these don't have prices and these do have prices. The ideal is that they do have prices and you can just make the purchase, as you can imagine. But I'm not sure why it's kind of set up like that. But if you could show the prices on all of them, that would be kind of a good situation. Um, Now the intercom, for example, this one doesn't have prices. Um, this one has the social links, and they do kind of all have the social links. Um, if we go to right RDM industrial, now industrial doesn't have the prices. All right, so it looks like only the car wash does have. Well, we'll see the fifth website, the medical one, in a second here, but um, it's the only one that has prices on here besides this one. So these were the four big commerce sites, right? Now this one, the RDM Medical, is using something called 3D Cart, which is I hadn't heard of it before. It's like a kind of a custom. It's its own thing. It's kind of like big commerce, but you know, and this website, this part of the company, I think does work the best, and it looks the best. It has a more kind of modern look to it. So if you look at now, they do offer repairs and they also offer equipment themselves. So if we like looked at the repairs here, you do have to sort this by brand, which there are so many of these brands. Um, so maybe like a little, there might be like a better or like more efficient way of like categorizing these, to where it's not just because it's a pretty, oh, it just goes to products eventually. I see. Okay. I hadn't looked at this specific page. I guess only page one. Oh, page one like a glossary. Okay. So I guess page one is a glossary here, and then it's just a list of all of the products. Um, oh, let's see, the products are down here. Interesting. All right. Um, it just makes it's a little clunky, right? It could be improved. If you go to the repair order form here, this is just a jot form, which has like some. You could probably like one of the things that like I would recommend, for example, is there's ways to say, oh, and this also doesn't open into its own tab, but that's not really super important. Is if you had say for example, it was this product that you wanted to order a repair for, you have like a link the uh, on this to like open a repair form, and it pre-fills this information, like the company and everything, instead of like having you need to go through and do that. um, these these products as well also kind of don't have a lot of descriptions on them, uh, which I did check in, like, they, as far as like SEO descriptions, they have them, but uh, they don't they're not necessarily shown up here. Which, if someone is just looking at, basically the part number, like maybe okay, but it's good to have like that additional information. One other thing that I did find here is that, so there's this core fee thing, which, if they, I, I'm not, well versed in this particular industry, but there's like, there's an option to either like buy the whole thing, or like you send them a broken version of it and they fix it. And the price for that is different, right? But if you like take a look at, and you can see like the price between, the repair and returns, that's what the price is here, is 250. The price for purchasing the whole thing is 475. However, you can actually select both of these buttons. And then if you add to cart and It'll show you go directly to the cart. It has both of these options selected, right? So it's kind of it's not the most ideal. I like those buttons should be mutually exclusive, ideally. So that's something to consider. The other thing that I did notice on this site is that so this is RDM medical, right? And they do have the medical equipment, which makes sense. But then they also have laundry on this site, laundry equipment, which is separate. So it is kind of maybe a bit confusing as to why they had these like I know like hospitals will definitely, for example, use like laundry, but like I would imagine laundry would kind of be its own category. Now, like I don't know the exact reason as to why they did this. Like maybe their medical business does just handle all the laundry, or maybe like they didn't want to create a sixth website for the laundry stuff and instead just like put it here with the medical. But it could just be kind of confusing if you're, came here, for example, for laundry stuff and you see it's like a it looks like a medical equipment site. Um, so just kind of you know, a thing that could possibly be improved. Um, Now, overall, like it isn't, they don't have a super ideal setup. Ideally, my vision of this as to like how it could like really work well, and I'm sure it does work for them, but I mean like kind of how to expand and kind of keep everything consistent is I would probably use something like Shopify, and then I would have like rdm.net slash petroleum slash car wash slash intercom slash industrial slash medical, so that everything is included within RDM. It's all on the same site, but just split out by like the subpage is split out by category, and it's on like one particular platform. So having it be on BigCommerce or having it be on Shopify, for example, I think would help them quite a bit. As far as just making everything like a little bit more streamlined, a little bit easier for people to find for SEO, and as well as like the tracking. Um, for Google Analytics and the tracking for ads, I think it would be a lot better. So that's kind of my overview of the website and some SEO stuff to kind of consider. And now we're going to move on to the actual advertising they're doing on Google Ads. Hey, if you're liking this video so far and you think it's interesting, you want to see more, please like and subscribe to the channel. I'd also love to see, if you comment down below, at this stage, what would you recommend this company do to improve their digital presence? I'd love to hear from you. All right, thanks. Back to the video. So this is the Google Ads library for RDM Industrial Electronics Inc. And we're going to take a look and see if there are any uh, optimizations, updates that we could make to kind of improve, from a very superficial kind of view to improve their performance here, or like any opportunities. The first thing I kind of see on here is that they are running. It appears that they are running some ads that might have a little bit outdated ad copy. So in this case, and it's pretty easy to be running responsive search ads and then to just you know have this slip through the cracks. So this is 2025 NACS show. So this is probably this was a trade show that happened last year. It's July 2026. So this is pretty out of date in this case. And you can see this was last shown on July 3rd, which is today. So it's still showing. So this might be something to just maybe do a quick audit of all of the ad copy that's running and see if you can make any updates there. They're running, so like looking through the ads they're running, they're image ads, text and video. They're not really running any shopping ads, which I think is an opportunity because they do like especially on the medical, the the washing machines and the uh, car wash stuff, they actually do have uh, like pricing on their items, which means they can use shopping ads, which means they probably should use shopping ads. And I did look up like some of their products, and a lot of times they do show up, as far as SEO is concerned, but they don't show up. Uh, they're getting beaten out by people running ads for those specific electronics. There was one other thing I did notice, like what they're probably using is a more like instead of like a product catalog, what they're likely using, at least from my view of this, is they actually just have like a data feed, and they've inserted their product names and information about them, which is kind of a more traditional way of doing things. It can be useful and it can be effective, but it is maybe not as efficient now as using something. I mean, it is like there's kind of like two things you would use to replace something like this that Google has been pushing and is generally a little bit better. Um, One of them is running just instead of dynamic search ads are going away, but like running a search campaign with AI Max and having it just search for your product pages is probably like kind of an effective way of doing this, or just having a standard like shopping product catalog and using something like Performance Max would probably also be effective here. And uh, you wouldn't run into some of the issues that I'm going to showcase here in one moment when I find one. Because I believe that there is potentially an issue with special characters. Yeah, so one of the special characters, right? When you have a each character in your on your computer has like a code associated with it, right? If your computer like or the system knows what the code is, it displays the character. If it doesn't know what the code is, it will often display the code for the character instead. So in this case, like you see that this says new Gilbarco 10.4 at QUOT semicolon. That to me looks like a code for a character. So if they have their, and here's kind of another one, right? They have RDM at pound 39 semicolon S, right? That could be a code that is for a character that's not being brought in properly. So it kind of defaults to whatever the plain text version of the code is. Uh, so that is something where the you'd have to go in and figure out look in the data feed, which I'm assuming this is, and find which uh character this is that is like causing this. It's not like the absolute end of the world, but it can make your ads look a little like look a little weird, you know what I mean? So it's something that I would probably look into. Now, if we look at the top here, they're only running 46 ads. So they're not running a whole, that's like not a whole ton. They have a fairly decent range here as far as what they are running. But they could be, I think honestly, like they could be running more. They could also be running ads like on, I think as far as like channel expansion for them, my best like option I think that would be good is LinkedIn is number one, because they do B2B, they do electronics repair, they do industrial stuff. I think it really does make sense for them to be on LinkedIn. Um, I also do think it makes sense for them to probably be on like Microsoft or Bing ads. If they're the strength of Microsoft Bing ads is that it really shines when dealing with more traditional industries. And by traditional industries, I mean more like, I'm not talking like whereas I mean like new industries might be like B2B software as a service, which I know that's not new, but it is more like uh it's newer. When you're talking about electronics, electronics has been around for a while. And so the people who are doing the electronics might be a little bit more, or buying like electronic equipment might be a little bit more old fashioned, especially kind of when it's more industrial like this is. And a lot of those people are going to be using Bing, especially in the United States. And if you want to get on Bing, you have to go and use Microsoft Ads, right? So I would go, try to, if we were going to expand and kind of like improve our performance here and just as a like a whole company, I would go for LinkedIn and then Microsoft once we got Google into a good place. So that's kind of like my recommendations for paid media. And now we're just gonna get into the final wrap up for the video and final recommendations. So overall, I think the biggest thing for RDM moving forward, at least in my opinion, right, a cursory overview of their business, right? I don't have any direct information, it's just what is available publicly. I think that improve the first thing that I would probably focus on is the website. Um, I would probably want to consolidate, and I think I did mention this, but I think I would like to consolidate the websites into ideally one, just like RDM.net, and then have subsections divided for the additional like industries and products. And that way, it just makes tracking much easier. It makes just analytics much easier, and it'll make running an ad account and everything a lot easier. Right? I'm looking at it not from, I mean, more from a paid media view because that is really what I do. Instead of an operational perspective, perhaps operationally it does make sense for them to have all of these different websites. But for like me personally, when I'm looking in there and I go, yeah, I think like this, it opens a lot of areas where you have to be really careful to make sure that everything is like stitched together properly. Right, there's a lot of extra work, for whatever data person is going to be doing that, and also there's a lot of overhead too in the amount of, if you have to manage 5 websites, it's like a lot of work, right? Compared to one website that has sections. Um, at least when you're managing stock, and I know they do have 6 locations. So maybe it's they're kind of each dedicated to a different thing. I kind of doubt it though. They're in different states, so it's probably just a more of a regional type, distribution type thing. Um, but yeah, that's probably what I would do. If we were going to go probably the easiest route of consolidating the websites, modernizing them a little bit, I would probably use Shopify, just because it is something that I have had really good experiences with in the past. It streamlines a whole lot. It has good integrations with Google Ads, Google Analytics, and it really does provide an excellent baseline for a modern, streamlined looking and functioning website. And it has all of the the plugins and everything you can use, and it really is, it's quite good. It makes things a lot easier. So again, they might be getting, paying less, of a percentage of each of their sale, for example, to BigCommerce. So that might be beneficial for them. But in my opinion, Shopify as a unifying kind of um, platform for e-commerce, I think would probably be my recommendation. Um, Now, as far as the ads are concerned, right? We saw some things where some copy might need to be updated, or some data feeds might need to be updated, and that's pretty easy to fix. Um, I'd be concerned about the. I'm always concerned about the quality of the data because that is just how I am. I am a data guy. Um, but you know, if the data was accurate and correct and everything, I think really the easiest area for them to expand into is going to be shopping ads, because there are people running shopping ads for those electronic products. So there is an opportunity for them to come in and run those. And generally, and I took a look, the other people who were running them, those types of ads, and they weren't super great. So there is like an opportunity for them to be a leader in the space, which is could be really great for them. Uh, Otherwise, being on LinkedIn is an excellent platform for B2B, just by the nature of who's using it and the targeting. So I think being on LinkedIn would make a lot of sense, particularly like as a LinkedIn would make sense for them, not necessarily in the way Google is like the way you want to sell, you'd want to sell products directly on Google. On LinkedIn, what you'd want to do is you'd want to be getting, using it for lead gen for, someone running a laundromat or someone running a hospital, the maintenance director, and, get that lead and establish that relationship so that they use you for any of their repairs and stuff like that. That's what you'd want to be going after on LinkedIn instead of like product sales directly, because it doesn't have the intent that Google does. Um, the other platform that I did mention on on the ads section is Microsoft Ads or Bing. Um, and the reason I mention that is because, I think Bing shines and Microsoft shines in areas that are more traditional industries, and with kind of a little bit older clientele, a little bit less tech savvy. So I think it would be effective, like an effective addition to their platform, um, to run Microsoft. It's a lot more fidgety than Google is to get really running effectively. But if we had good data, and we were running primarily like kind of e-commerce the way we would be running on Google, I think we could, do a pretty good job. So right, the point of this video is not to, as I kind of said at the beginning, just to reiterate, it's not to like look down on, what they're doing digitally and what they're doing on advertising. It's just to kind of highlight, some improvements that I think personally they could make, and feel free to disagree with me. But as far as like what I tend to see things not as they are, but as what they could be. And I see like a streamlined, Shopify platform with all of these products and like a robust advertising account and kind of being a leader in the space. That's what I see. Right. That's what I think they have potentially the infrastructure to become. With just some now it's going to take some investment, right? But I do believe that they could potentially get there, and I thought, maybe it could be valuable for them, or valuable for anyone who's in a similar space, or just wants to take a look at their own uh, digital presence or advertising presence to see what people might notice, to get like kind of a bit of an outside view. So thank you for watching. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more. I'll be working on some more of these kind of uh, you know reviews, as well as some paid media tutorials, and maybe a podcast as well.